Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we'll be talking about the true cost of getting a PhD. But you know what? Before that, we have a very rare Southern California rainstorm. So I just want to show you because this basically never happens. So just take a quick look. Okay, so getting back into the main point of this video. So in this video, I want to talk about the true cost of getting a PhD. And the reason I want to do that, so let me just preface and say I do not have a PhD. I just finished a master's program, but I have seen a lot of people who are thinking about getting a PhD for purely financial reasons, or did actually go do a PhD for financial reasons. And the thought process, especially if you're in data science and statistics and those type of fields, is, oh, go look at these like high profile jobs at Google and Amazon and Netflix and all these data scientist research jobs where you absolutely need a PhD, and look how highly they're paying. So surely it must pay off to go do a PhD and then go do one of those jobs. Maybe in some situations it would pay off, but I hope to kind of show through this video that going back to get a PhD for purely financial reasons is generally, in my opinion, not a great decision. And I want to demonstrate that not through like my opinions or how I feel about it, but I want to go through a set of 3 very concrete what if analyses. What if your salary is this before? What if your salary is this after? How long does it take to do the PhD? Factors like that. And show you through those in which situations would it make sense, if that's your situation, to go back for financial reasons. In what situations it wouldn't make sense, the whole spectrum there. And before I start those what if analyses, I want to be very clear that this video is just if financial reasons are your main incentive. There are tons of reasons to get a PhD that are not financial related. If you really care about your field, if you see yourself doing research in that field for your career, if you see yourself becoming a professor, absolutely go back, get that PhD, ignore this video. This is mainly just for people who are on the fence and trying to decide based on the fact that they think their financial future would be somehow better if they got one versus did not get one. And I hope to go through these analyses. So let's get right into it. So we're going to look at this from the point of view first of someone who is currently working a full-time job, and they're making $80,000 in that full-time job per year. And based on the best available research in their field, based on the best available job statistics, they think that after finishing a 6-year PhD, they think they'll be able to make $120,000 after that. And also during that 6-year PhD program, they are given a stipend. So PhD students are often given a bit of money as a stipend in order to cover living expenses and things like that. And we'll say they're given the average stipend, which is $20,000 per year, if they choose to go into the PhD program. And the final factor in our analysis is that your salary is going to raise by 3% every year. So if you don't choose to get a PhD, you're currently making $80,000 a year. We're saying that every subsequent year, your salary is going to go up by 3%. And if you do choose to get a PhD, then when you start making your $120,000 6 years after finishing your PhD, that salary will also go up by 3%. So this is all the factors we're going to consider. So using all these factors, we can actually do a kind of back of the envelope rough break-even analysis. And I want to be clear, this is not taking into account factors like interest rates and inflation, because those things would not affect which graph is higher than the other. They would just affect the actual dollar values. So we can do this break-even analysis, and the results are shown in this top graph up here. So to be very clear, this graph has 2 lines, and the first one is showing how many dollars would you make over time. So for the next 40 years, we're assuming after 40 years, after starting your PhD program, that's your retirement, let's just say. These graphs are showing what is the total dollars you're making in your lifetime if you choose not to get that PhD versus if you do choose to get that PhD. And looking at this graph, you can see that the 2 lines intersect at 19 years. That is what we call the break-even point. More intuitively, what that means is that 19 years after starting your PhD, that is when you start to see the financial benefits of your PhD, if all of these factors we just said are your current situation. The other number we see on this graph is if we look at the very last data points in this graph on both lines, that is the total amount of dollars that you're going to make in your lifetime in either of the 2 cases. If we simply take the difference between those and we look at the percentage increase, we see that if you do choose to get a PhD under these situations, you're going to be making 16% more dollars over the course of your lifetime. But again, it's going to take 19 years to start seeing any benefits financially at all. And now I just want to do the same break-even analysis and just change the numbers a little bit, because it's not fair for anyone online to come and say, oh, under these assumptions, you shouldn't do this. I want to give you a full picture, show you some other possible outcomes as well. So in this next what if analysis, we're going to change three things. The first is that we're going to change your current salary to $100,000. And we're also going to change the future salary you would get after you get a PhD to $140,000, which is still a jump of $40,000 actually. But if you think about the percentage increase from 100 to 140, that's actually less than the percentage increase from 80 to 120. So that's where some of the difference is coming in. And the other difference we're going to say is that the amount you're getting your salary raised by is not 3%, but it's 4%. So these seem like seemingly minor changes, but they actually change the story a whole lot. So if you look at the break-even analysis now, which is in the second chart here, you can see that it breaks even in 30 years after you start your PhD. And also if we look at the total lifetime earnings, we would see that getting a PhD only increases your total lifetime earnings by about 4%. So I would say in this case, clearly it's not as favorable. And the main point I want to get across, seemingly minor changes to your situation can have pretty big impacts on whether or not the PhD is worth it and how worth it is. And just to close out the video, let's look at the final case because I want to give the whole picture again. So this case we're going to call the best case scenario for getting a PhD. So the numbers, we're going to change the raised amount back to 3%. We're also going to change the amount you're currently getting back to $80,000. And we're going to change the amount you would get afterward to $150,000. So clearly almost a double in your salary by getting a PhD. So seems more worth it in this case. And the raise amount is back to 3%, which means that the amount your initial salary before getting a PhD would increase by is not as big anymore. So in this case, it becomes clearly more worth it to go back and get that PhD. We'll look at the final graph down here, and we see that in this case, your total lifetime earnings go up by 45%. So you have almost a 50% increase in the total amount of money you're going to make in your lifetime. And the payoff point, the break-even point in this case, is 12 years. So in this case, just 12 years after starting your PhD, which would be 6 years after finishing your PhD, that is the break-even point. At that point, you start to see the benefits of getting your PhD. So again, I want to close the video now, and I am not saying anything about whether you should go back or not go back. The main point I want to get across in this video is that going back to get your PhD for financial reasons may not go the way you think. Little changes in your assumptions about what your future salary could be, or what your salary will be raised by per year, or how long it takes you to do your PhD, little changes in things like that. And these things you might plan for, but they might not go the way you think, just because, life happens and your assumptions aren't always 100% airtight. So my personal opinion is going back to get a PhD for financial reasons may not be the best call. I would very strongly urge you to plug in your own numbers here and do this analysis for yourself and see what kind of ranges of financial differences are more in line with your situation. And the final thing I would say is go talk to somebody who got a PhD. Again, I did not. I got a master's degree. So a lot of what I'm saying is just based on numbers, but there's probably a ton more perspectives from people who do have PhDs. So I would definitely try to connect with people who have gone through the process and what they think about it. Okay, so that's all. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this kind of what-if analysis, then please like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.